Hi, this is Jennifer Winkleman, and I'm about to do the Math 111 Test 3 review. And I usually start my test reviews. The first thing I want to let you know is that, the best way to learn is through practice. So try doing these problems on your own and only use the video as a guide whenever you're really stuck. Try doing it first, and then watching the video, seeing where you made mistakes, and if you couldn't finish a problem, see how I finished it. Try to do it yourself, and then try to do it over again so that you get it down, okay? Make sure you come into this test with a scientific calculator as well. I'll make these first couple really easy. First one says, find the value of f of -3. The only thing this means is to plug in -3 anytime you see x. So what do I mean? That means 3, -3 plus 7. That's exactly what I'm doing, okay? Exactly what I'm doing there whenever I'm doing this, this problem. That's all I want to do. So from here, I go ahead and get this, and I get 3 times -3 is -9 plus 7. That ends up being -2. So that's the first one, okay? The next one, I do the exact same thing, except I'm going to be using -5, like that. So I get 3 times 5 plus 7, okay? So 3 times 5 is 15. Plus 7, I'm going to end up adding these two together, and I should end up with 22 for my final answer of these. Don't worry about the f of the number. F of the number just means replace x here, that x, with whatever that number is there, okay? Nothing fancy, that's all you got to do. Okay, for this next problem, what you want to do is graph these 2 points and find the slope. Really, you can do it in either order. You can find the slope first, and then you can graph, or you can go ahead and graph and then find the slope. So let's go ahead and graph -2, 4, and 5, 4, okay? What I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to put these points on the line. So -2, 4 is going to be about there, okay? And then 5, 4 is going to be 1, 2, 3, and then up here. Now, the only kind of line that can go through this is a horizontal line. So I'm going to connect these 2 dots, like that. All right? So that's the line that goes through these points. Now, you should know that horizontal lines have 0 slope. If you don't, you use your slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, to figure that out. Y2 is going to be, if you go through and label these x1, y1, x2, y2, okay? Then you have 4 minus 4 all over 5 minus -2. So ends up giving you 0 over 7. That becomes a plus. So the answer here is 0. A 0 slope. And also horizontal lines all have 0 slopes. Now, this next one, number 3, says, consider the following y-intercept and slope. Now, in this case, I tell you this is the y-intercept. Because that is the y-intercept, I know that whenever I go to find the equation of the line, I can use slope-intercept, where n is the slope, b is your intercept. So here is my m, this -4 is the b. It's literally all I'm replacing. Y equals 3, my m, x, and then -4 for my b. That's my equation of the line. Now to graph using slope-intercept, as you can see here, -4 is already on the graph. That's where you start the second number. If it's a minus, it's going to be on the negative side. If it's a positive, it'll be on the positive side. Your slope, your m, is 3 over 1. I'm sure you've heard the expression rise over run. This means you go up 3 and over 1. What if your slope was a negative number? Instead of going up, you would go down. But you would still go to the right. You always go to the right. So from this point, -4, I'm going to count up 3. 1, 2, 3, and over 1. Right there. Draw my line as best as possible, and I'm finished. I have just done my graph and slope-intercept point. Okay? Go on to the next one. Alright, the next one here says, list the order pairs corresponding to the points in the graph. So take a good look at these points and try to do them. I'm going to go ahead and just write what they are. A is at 3, 3. B is at 3, 1. C is at -1, 6. x is at negative 6, comma negative 2. Now the next part of the question says find the domain and range. Domain is x, range is y. Okay? So I'm just going to list my x's for domain. I'm just going to list my y's for the range. So d is equal, and we do these squiggly lines, 3, negative 1, and 6. Those were my x's right here. Now notice 3 appears twice. Okay? I only want to write it once. Some instructors prefer that you do this in order. So if you want to be certain to get this in order, okay, then you want to be, alright, if you want to be certain to get this in order, then you go ahead and you do this in negative 1, comma, 3, oops, I'm sorry, negative 6, comma, negative 1, comma, 3. My bad on that. Okay. Now, the range are all your y values, so I'm not going to put these in order, so we're looking at 3, 1, 6, and negative 2. All of them. Now it says use the vertical line test to determine whether the function, if the graph is a function. Okay. The vertical line test is where you take your graph and you just draw these vertical lines like this, and you see if you hit 2 points, if you have that happening. Well, look here, if I start drawing vertical lines, 1 point, 1 point, uh-oh, 2 points right here. This does not pass the vertical line test at all. Another way to tell is notice. Those 3's are the same in the x. We cannot have that. You can have 2 of the same number in the y, but not in the x. If you have 2 of the same number, like this, that go to different y values, that is not a function. That's another way to tell without graphing it. Let's go to the next one. The next one is asking use a vertical line test to determine whether this is a function. If it is a function, say the domain and range. Well, again, I'm going to go through and draw lines. Now, in a spot like here, it's obvious if this passes. But sometimes you get to like these lines, like these parts, and a lot of students have trouble figuring out if it's passing or not. It is. Can you notice the curve of this graph when you're drawing it? It's ever changing so slightly as it keeps going up. So in this case, it does pass the vertical line test. It is a function. So what's the domain? Well, from what x to what x does this graph do? Okay. So what x to what x, that's the one thing we have to figure out. So if I look at this x is where it starts, this x is where it stops, this y is where it starts, and this y here is where it stops. Okay. So my domain, and in this case I'm going to do brackets, alright, because it has these dots, which tells me that it's touching them. So this x here is negative 1, this x here is negative 7. So you want to go smallest to biggest. That got connected there. Okay, comma, negative 1 like that. And my range up here is 8. Down here is negative 1. So again, negative 1 to 8 is what I want to write for my domain and range. To show that this graph is a function. Let's move on. This next problem is asking identify the slope of each line. So this is just looking at an example of what kind of slopes these are. If you notice in the first one we had this problem in example 2, this is a 0 slope. Okay? Number one thing I tell students is imagine you're a person and you're walking on this. Easy to walk on, okay? 0 slope. No sweat whenever you're walking. Alright? I'm going to come back to the second one. This one, if we read it left to right, it goes up, so it's a positive slope. So if I'm a little dude walking on this, okay? Got some problems here, but it's, it's so positive. Might be able to make it. This one from left to right, it's going down, so it's a negative slope. So I'm still a dude, I can walk on this, having a good time. Or lady. Now this one here, you notice, it's going straight up and down. Can this little guy walk on this? Not really. Nope. He'd have to climb or be Spider-Man, shooting his web right there to get up there. There's no way that he can do that. You can't climb on that. I mean, you can't walk on that at all. So this is called undefined. it is too steep. It's a vertical line. Okay? That's the slope. So if it's up and down, vertical, undefined, horizontal, 0. Anything else, read it left to right. Okay. The next problem is having us use that information to write an equation of these lines through this point here, and one of them has to be undefined, so which we know is a vertical line, a 0 slope, which we know is a horizontal line. Okay? So let's put that point on the graph. 1, comma, negative 4. So down right there, that's the point. 1, negative 4. So my vertical line is going to go up and down like this. Okay, my horizontal line is just going to go like this. So this is A, this is B. Now to write my equation, let's talk about that. If you look at A, what is it going through? Just the X. Just that X value. What is your X value? 1. So my equation is X equals 1. Literally the number in the point. Okay? The next one is asking the 0 slope. We know what number, what is this going through? It's going through the Y. Okay? What is your Y number? Negative 4. So Y equals negative 4. Those are my equations. Please don't get them mixed up. A lot of students see the vertical one, this one here, and think up and down, that must be Y. It's not the case. Okay, very common mistake that a lot of students make. Don't fall in that trap. I'm going to pause here before I move on to the next set of questions, which has to do with systems of equations.